This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
Hello and welcome to the latest show from Blood Red. I'm Matt Addison. Alongside me for this special episode is Jacob Crook, Blackburn reporter for Lancs Live, here to talk about Harvey Elliott, who of course the youngster on loan this season from Liverpool at Blackburn. Jacob, first things first, how are you, mate? How are you getting on?
Yeah, not too bad. Getting along nicely. Obviously lockdown's not great for everyone, is it really? But all good. Yourself? You well?
Yeah, lockdown's not great. The international break, not my favourite time of year either, but it's one of those, isn't it? 1 week to go and then we'll all be back at proper football matches again.
Yeah, no, it sort of comes in for Blackburn Rovers at the minute, but yeah, looking forward to getting back into action. Obviously, it's like a Tuesday, Saturday run of fixtures now till Christmas. That's going to be pretty relentless, but looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a busy time of year, isn't it? And I'm sure Harvey Elliott is going to be featuring a lot for Blackburn in that time. 1 goal, 3 assists so far this season. He seems to be off to an absolute flyer.
Yeah, he's settled in extremely well. Far better than I ever imagined, actually. He made his debut against Watford, which for the Championship is pretty tough opposition, but he was fine in that game. For a 17-year-old to play that maturely in a contest which was quite fiercely contested, and in a game where sort of Blackburn were on top for most of it, he was excellent, and he sort of built on that from there. And even though results perhaps haven't quite gone Blackburn's way as of late, he's still been one of the star performers for most of it. So he's been good.
What is it that you've been sort of most impressed by, what he brings? Obviously, he's got a lot of talent, but is there something that stands out to you in the early few matches?
I think his maturity for his age. It's exceptional, to be honest. I remember just watching him in the warm-up, especially in the Watford game as well, and I was thinking, what was I doing at 17? It was nothing like this. But you sort of expect him with the talent that he's got. You know, sometimes he'll make you'd expect someone to probably make mistakes and not trying to beat a defender too many times, but his awareness of when to make the right pass, of when to take a player on, where to move. It's far exceeds some of the players that Blackburn have already got in terms of his decision making, and it sort of paid off in the Saturday win on against QPR. Like the ability to find the pass, pick out the pass. Obviously led to Adam Armstrong's second goal of the game, which ultimately won the game for Rovers. It's just, his ability to know when to make the right decisions, just staggering compared to some of the other players in the camp.
Yeah, I mean, I believe he researched Blackburn and their style of play and the manager and things like that before he made the move there. And I suppose that as well underlines that maturity that he's got. He knew that he needed to go there and make an impression. And it seems that has paid off because he's settled in straight away. Yeah,
he's operating on the right of an attacking three. Obviously, Rovers now set up in a 4-3-3. It's sort of changed over the summer. Mowbray wanted to transition into a side that's more possession based, it's more attacking. He sort of felt that he never had the caliber of player to sort of do that beforehand, but now he feels like he's sort of got the personnel in to do that, to sort of dominate matches, and he likes to press on the front foot. They've started matches well, like trying to press the opposition into mistakes, and obviously Elliott features in that a lot. He knows what to do in them sort of instances, where to press. I think he's sometimes a bit cautious of other players not doing their jobs, if you understand what I mean. Sometimes he'll back off just because he's wary of what's behind. But Mowbray urges him to press on, and it's got him into some good positions, which he's been able to take advantage of. But the system sort of suits him well. He has operated in the middle of the midfield three in some instances as well. And his ability on the ball, then he's been able to showcase it, just spraying passes about. His vision's excellent. His accuracy, distribution is top notch, and he's just going to get better as he goes along, really.
And you mentioned there the sort of pressing and the style of play that Blackburn have now. I suppose there are similarities to the way that Liverpool play, and I suppose that will be a key reason why the Reds wanted him to go to a club like Blackburn, because it helps his development, and when he comes back, he'll be better at those key principles that Jurgen Klopp has at Liverpool as well.
Yeah, Blackburn is sort of in conversation with Liverpool a lot. Tony Mowbray's having like weekly meetings with coaching staff and stuff like that, just to discuss his development, where they feel like they need to work on or improve. But obviously Mowbray proposed this big presentation for when they tried to sign him, and obviously that tickled Liverpool's pickle in that regard, in terms of bringing him in. And yeah, it's sort of with Tony Mowbray as well, in terms of developing young players. You have to look at the academy and some of the players that he's brought through in recent years, the way he's nurtured them, the likes of Lewis, Travis, Joe Rank, who was formerly Liverpool Academy product. Joe Rankin, Costello, the likes of them have come into the first team. And obviously he had history in the past with Ryan Kent at Coventry, bringing him through, and he had quite a few loan players in that season with Coventry. Just his ability to nurture young players into the game, develop them, and lead them onto their future career paths. That's a big standout point when obviously a deal came through.
We at Blood Red spoke to one of Harvey Elliott's youth coaches at Fulham a couple of months ago, and he sort of picked out the elite mentality that he had coming through. You know, even as a 12, 13-year-old, he'd be out doing extra sessions on the training ground and things like that to try and improve himself as a player and make sure that he was at the top of his game. Is there any examples of that sort of thing at Blackburn so far? Is he going above and beyond in any way to try and get himself in the team?
Yeah, they can't speak highly enough of him on the training pitches. Mowbray says a lot. Obviously, he bases a lot of his decisions on what's been done on the training ground, and if you don't impress on the training ground, you're never going to play. And he's always one that he talks about a lot in terms of what he's doing, the extra application he provides. He stops over longer than he needs to. He's always keen to analyse in the video room, pick out areas he can improve. And his personality as well is a vibrant personality. All the players, get along with him, and it sort of rubs off on them as well when you have somebody who's quite infectious like that. So yeah, on the training ground, he's been brilliant to have. Everybody said that coaches have all in unison about that, and he's been a brilliant addition so far.
He seems to be playing a lot of 90 minutes as well, which I think for a 17-year-old to go straight into the Championship, to be thrown straight in, is there any sort of sign that maybe late on in games he gets a little bit tired and maybe he's not developed physically, or has he literally just come in and become one of those senior players straight away?
I think he's been fine, bar probably the Swansea game, and I think Rovers are pretty overexerted by that point. He looked a bit fatigued at the end, and he made a couple of mistakes in possession. But by that sort of time, game was lost. They were 2-0 down, and Swansea was sort of dominating it really, and he was trying things a little outside the box, trying to muster something to get Rovers back into the game, but nothing was really paying off on that day. And in terms we've had quite a few injury issues lately, Blackburn. There's been COVID issues as well. So the squad has been quite stretched as of late. And it's probably meant that Mowbray's had to play him a lot more than he initially wanted to. But he's come through fine with it. He's been largely unscathed. I think they're wary of nurturing him a little bit, as for like the rest of the squad, really. Adam Armstrong, obviously, they're looking to nurture through. But he's dealt with it fine, and I'm sure across the season, if there's any issues, they'll rest him along the way. But for a 17-year-old, his fitness is not an issue.
I'm sure Blackburn fans are very excited about him now, but just thinking back to when he signed, what was the reaction from them? Did they know exactly what they were getting, or was it kind of an unknown quantity in a way?
Yeah, there was genuine excitement across the board. I remember going into it, I think the Thursday, there's 3 pretty much guaranteed signings. That we're going to bring in Barry Douglas from Leeds, Tom Tribal from Norwich, and Ainsley Pears from Middlesbrough. There was no really outline intention that they were going to get another attacker, and everybody sort of felt like they were probably one attacker short in the whole squad. And so when the news started emerging that they were in talks to bring Elliott in. There was real excitement. It was bubbling over on transfer deadline day. Actually, it was like a day to celebrate. I think Harvey Elliott was the cherry on the cake in bringing it all, and it's proved to be quite an astute signing so far.
It was one of those transfers that we didn't really expect to happen all the way through the summer. The line from Liverpool was that they wouldn't let him go out. Xherdan Shaqiri then ended up staying. I think a couple of different things changed for Liverpool in that transfer market, probably COVID related in many ways. But was there anything, do you think, on the sort of Blackburn end that convinced Liverpool to let him go to Blackburn in the end? I mean, obviously the benefit is there that he's getting these 90 minutes and he's going to develop, but what was it that made him choose Blackburn over, say, a number of other clubs? So I'm sure would have been interested as well.
I think geographically it helped a lot. I mean, if it had been like a club from London asking for, to take him on a season-long loan, it probably would have made the deal more difficult. But the fact that he can stay pretty much where he is now, he doesn't have to travel that far for training. I know his dad likes to keep an eye on him. He's been attending most of the matches and stuff and sort of nurturing him through it. And yeah, just like I mentioned earlier with Mowbray, his track record with developing players, and I think Liverpool can trust him to take on their advice and also give his point of view across in how he thinks is best to sort of bring him up. And I think there's a good sort of relationship between Liverpool and Blackburn from what I've seen in recent months. I know they had the friendly before the start of Project Restart in June, and Mowbray speaks highly of Liverpool and the way they set out to play, and especially Klopp. He's praised him like no end over recent months. And again, the style as well. If you're looking for a carbon copy in the Championship, I mean, Mowbray goes on about wanting to sort of play like Liverpool, and he's trying his best to emulate that with the players that he's got at his disposal. So, in terms of style, obviously, it's sort of a perfect fit.
I mean, how does Harvey Elliott compare, say, to other players in the Championship? I mean, it's still very early days, of course, but we've seen lots of players like Harry Wilson, who's back in there as well now at Cardiff, Mason Mount, Tammy Abraham, even Ryan Brewster last season is one that Liverpool would have had an eye on. I mean, is he, come the end of this season, going to be rated in a similar sort of way to those players, do you think?
It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. He's made an exceptional start already, to be fair, and given the sort of situation that Blackburn found themselves in, where they've sort of been on the back foot of late, and he's still been able to, make an impact from it. It only bodes well going into future months. I think they're looking sort of it's been a difficult start to a season. Probably revival is a word that I'm looking for, but a couple of games are going into it, they're looking to win, and he'll be a focal point in that. It's just there's elements to his game obviously which need to improve, need to be more selfish in front of goal. He sort of looks to the pass more often than he needs to. If he can just be a bit more clinical in the final third, that will sort of complete his game, and I'm sure he'll rack up loads of goals as well as assists towards the end of the campaign. But everything that he's shown so far suggests that he can make a real impact across the season.
And then a final question, really just more in terms of the season for Blackburn as a whole. I mean, how high are the expectations this year? Is the expectation that they should be in the playoff spots come the end of the season, and therefore is there a little bit of pressure on them in order to do that?
Yeah, last season there was a small hope that they could actually make a playoff push, and that sort of deteriorated during Project Restart. But obviously they've had a bit of an overhaul this summer, got rid of a bit of deadwood, and obviously brought in 9 players in the end, and the expectations have only heightened with that. And there's sort of a sense that it's top 6 or failure really. And Mowbray's been reiterating that across the last couple of months, that they're aiming for promotion. That's their main aim. And there are some fans that are still about that. There's obviously a few defensive issues that need to be ironed out. But the feeling is that when they have most players fit, because you're never going to get everybody fully fit in the Championship. It's virtually impossible. But when they do get most people fit, then they've got a side that are capable of challenging for the top 6 easily.
Yeah, I'm sure Harvey Elliott very much a big part of that squad, and we will continue, of course, across Blood Red and the Liverpool Echo to keep an eye out for what he is doing. I'm sure there'll be plenty more stories and reaction to follow throughout this season because, as you say, I'm sure he's going to get plenty more goals and assists and make himself a better and better player. But Jacob, thanks very much for your time, mate. Really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you for having me on.
That's all we've got time for on today's podcast, but we will, of course, be back next week with plenty more as the international break continues. Until now, and until then, though, I should say from myself, Matt Addison, that's all we've got time for. Goodbye for now.